Hey guys, it's Griffinoni here. Before we get started with today's episode, I have a new nickname suggestion from you all in the comments. Today's nickname has been suggested by Dr. Shrimp Puerto Rico N2B. And he has suggested the nickname Mare for our shiny Gyarados. This is in reference to the Mare enemy from the Mario series. It's the red eel in most cases, so it fits given that our Gyarados is a shiny red Gyarados, which I like. It fits every vibe that I would want out of a Gyarados. So thank you very much, Dr. Shrimp Puerto Rico N2B, for the suggestion. And now, let us begin the episode. Hey guys, it's Griffinoni here, and welcome back to Pokemon HeartGold. Last time, we went into the Saffron Gym and took on Sabrina, the Saffron City Gym leader. It was a very long and kind of a bit of a cheesy fight on my end, but we ultimately did prevail against her Pokemon, obtaining ourselves the Marsh Badge. So, with that said, what are we going to be doing today? Well, we are going to be heading out east, like I said, but before we do, there is one more thing that I would like to do while we are still here in Saffron City, and for us to do that, we actually need to go into the Pokemon Center, because there are a couple things that we need to take care of. The first thing I want to do is I want to address the PC. Now that we have entered the Hall of Fame, there is one new function in the PC that was not available to us prior, and that is the Hall of Fame. If we click on this, we can now see a nice little display of our first entry in the Hall of Fame. And if we were to return to the Pokemon League and challenge it again, we would get information for all of our subsequent wins as well. So here we get information on what day I went to enter the Hall of Fame, what Pokemon I used, the levels that they were at, and the moves that they had at the time. It's just a nice little way of keeping track of what you used when you took on the Pokemon League. It's a pretty nice detail. It doesn't really serve any function otherwise, but people like record keeping, and this is a way of keeping records, so thank you, game. No, what we're actually going to be doing today in the Pokemon Center is we are going to be making use of the Union Room. This is the way that you allow yourself to connect with other players. And while I do not have another person for me to interact with, unfortunately, I do have another DS on me. So we're going to be using the Union Room here to do a little bit of swapping between trainers, because we need to get a few new Pokemon in our game here for reasons that you'll see later. So we're going to head into the Union Room, and I'm going to get my other DS all prepped up. Alright, the Union Room has been activated, and as you can see, we now have a new face here. This is Rui. So Rui is actually is the player from my Platinum game. And I'm going to be using this for the sake of kind of establishing what we can do. So there are many options that we have here. So we can greet, we can draw. If we want to draw a picture together, we can do that. We can battle each other if we wanted to do that, but this is not the thing that I want to do, given what I have in my party, what Rui has in her party. You'll see in a second. We can exchange records here, which I will be doing just for the sake of demonstrating, and trading. That's the main thing we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do, let's exchange records here, just for the sake of it. So we're going to mix records, and although I can't really show it on the respective other end, on the other DS, Rui is being prompted if she wants to mix records with Griffin. So we're going to take our records here. I'm going to hit A on the other DS to proceed. Are these members okay? And we're going to mix our records. Record mixing has been completed. Now, this doesn't really serve as many practical functions, given that I'm playing HeartGold and Rui is from Platinum version, but there are some specific functions that can be obtained if you were using the same version of the game. One such example is the spot in Platinum version where you can obtain Feebas. If you're mixing records with other trainers, then for that day, all of the Feebas spawn locations would be the same. But in our case, not really much gets accomplished, but I still wanted to show it off. Now, as for what I am planning to do with Rui, we're gonna do some trading. because there are some Pokemon that I need to get from Rui. Rui is kind of my sugar mama in this situation, but I'm not going to complain about that one bit. So as you can see, I don't have a lot in my party right now. I got a few Pokemon outside of Goldenrod City with Ultra Ball and Quick Balls. But as you can see, there are a few Pokemon that we need to take from Rui. Because we're going to need these Pokemon in order to kind of cover everything that I want to do in the Let's Play. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to prioritize trading Rattata for Rotom. This is a Pokemon that we're going to be going over today, and this is the only trade that I'm going to be showing outright on screen. I will be doing all the other trades, but you don't need to see every single animation. But just trust me when I say every Pokemon, aside from that Starly in her party, is going to be traded over this way. So, let's go! And if you're curious, the animation is pretty much exactly the same on the respective DS screen. The only difference is that the Pokemon's sprites look slightly different, but that's just because Rattata got a whole new sprite for HeartGold version, whereas Platinum version has its own sprite. But again, you'll just have to take my word for it. So we got Plasma, the Rotom, and if you know, you know. Okay, so like I said, I am going to be cutting ahead to my getting all the trades done, but I am going to be trading over the 4 Drowsy and Rattata in exchange for the Arceus, Deoxys, Pichu, and Celebi that are in Rui's party. Now, before anyone gets any funny ideas, I just want to state for the record, these Pokemon that I'm going to be trading over are all legitimate. I did legitimately obtain them in the events that they were distributed from. Well, except for Deoxys, I got that from the event and then transferred it over through the PAL Park, but we'll get to that another time. But regardless, I am going to state for the record, these Pokemon, regardless of how you feel about them, are only going to be used in the Let's Play for the explicit purpose that they are meant for, and that includes Rotom as well. I have no intention of using them in the Let's Play for any purpose otherwise, so regardless of how you feel about these Pokemon, I am not going to be using anything in here to get through the rest of the game. I'm only going to be using these Pokemon for the sake of demonstrating what I need to demonstrate with them to show off everything in this game. So with that said, let's cut ahead to my getting done with everything and move on to our business today with Rotom. Alright, and that takes care of everything that I wanted to do as far as trading is concerned. We will probably do some more things with the Union Room later on once a couple of other things become more available to me. But for now, this is going to be it for the immediate moment. So everyone say thank you and goodbye to Sugar Mama Rui, because this is the last we'll be seeing of her for the time being. Bye, Sugar Mama Rui. Appreciate ya. Okay, so with that little bit of business taken care of and that little bit of a teaser for things to come later, let's take care of the last bit of business we have here in Saffron City, shall we? Our last bit of business takes us to the Silphco building today. And before we do anything else, I want to switch out Rotom to the front, for reasons that will be apparent in a moment. Hello, Plasma. Say hello to the world. Plasma is doing its best to keep up with you. Yay, I appreciate that, buddy. It's good to see you on screen. Alright, so welcome to the Silphco building. Now, this building has changed considerably between the Gen 1 and Gen 2 games. Mainly that we can't fully explore the entirety of the building, but there is a little bit that we can do here. So for now, I want to take a look at this thing. The elevator's out of order. May electrocute you. Stay away. Huh. That was weird. We're not able to do this right now? Ah, yes. So in order for us to go into the elevator properly, we need to bring Rotom with us. Rotom's electricity affected the elevator, and now it's working. That's why I brought Rotom with me. Here we are. What do we have here? There's a mysterious notebook here. Its age is impossible to tell. It was by pure chance that I obtained information about the Pokemon Rotom. Remarkably, Rotom has the ability to enter and merge with special motors. It's now known that Rotom can stay inside a motor almost indefinitely. However, it will emerge if it enters a union room or a Wi-Fi club. Gee, wonder why that is. Rotom will also emerge from the motor if it is left at the daycare. Rotom may also forget certain moves when it leaves a motor. This Pokemon requires exhaustive observation and analysis. To ensure I get all the credit, my Rotom research must be kept secret. They will come to revere me as the scientific genius, Char. The rest of the notebook is blank. Alright, so let's talk about these electronics. With these electronics now available to us, it is time to talk about Rotom as a Pokemon. Now, I will acknowledge that this somewhat breaks my rule of talking about disingenuous Pokemon since, yes, Rotom cannot be found in Pokemon HeartGold or Soul Silver. However, it is the explicit intention of the developers of this game for you to transfer Rotom from either Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum version to access this room, as we just saw. So, if I want to show off everything, I had to do this. Anyway, going into Rotom as a Pokemon, to say this is a unique Pokemon is a gross understatement. Rotom has run the gambit of how it is classified from every end of things all throughout the series. Some consider it a semi-legendary Pokemon since it did play the legendary encounter theme when you caught it in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum versions. Some consider it a rare Pokemon only used by top scientists. And nowadays, it acts as the power source for both your Pokedex and or phones. In terms of stats, however, Rotom in its base form is relatively average. It does have decent special attack and speed, which is what you would want out of an electric type, but all of its other stats are average at best and mediocre at worst. And there are other electric types that can do what Rotom can do, only better. Still, it does have a unique type that has never been repeated since, and the combination of its types plus Levitate gives Rotom all the pros of being an electric type, but none of the cons. If it just had better stats, we'd be in business. Fortunately, that's where the appliances here come in. Rotom has the ability to possess any one of these 5 electric appliances, and depending on which one it possesses, it transforms into one of 5 different forms. Well, I say different, but in this generation, they weren't quite as different as they would be later. When Rotom transforms, it gets a considerable boost to its defenses and special attack at the cost of some speed, making it much more viable for both single player and multiplayer, on paper. Additionally, depending on which form it takes, Rotom gets access to a special move that corresponds with a different appliance. When it transforms into Heat Rotom, it gets the move Overheat. With Wash Rotom, it gets Hydro Pump. Frost Rotom gets Blizzard, Fan Rotom gets Air Slash, and Mauve Rotom gets Leaf Storm. Any one of these forms of Rotom can work well for you depending on which move you need. However, it is worth pointing out that, unlike all subsequent games, the individual forms of Rotom do not change their types to correspond with their appliance. In this game, they all remain Electric Ghost type. This wouldn't be as much of a problem, except that it means that none of the alternate forms can get a same type attack boost from their unique moves. And since that's the case, it's hard to justify picking any one form over the other, aside from their unique move. However, while doing research on Rotom, I was able to find one meaningful difference between the forms. One that only matters in HeartGold and Soul Silver specifically. And that is their Pokeathlon stats. They're all different. And while the difference is relatively marginal, each form of Rotom has their strengths and weaknesses in the Pokeathlon. So, if nothing else, you can mess around with the different forms to find out which form is good for which event. Regardless, Rotom is a great electric type that was only made better with the appliances, and while it's not nearly as versatile as it will be in later games, it is still worth training it over and giving it a shot. If I have to pick a form to recommend, either Wash or Fan Rotom, but like I said, it really doesn't matter. Anyway, now with that little explanation out of the way, I am going to be giving Rotom a form, and like I said, I'm not going to be using Rotom in any meaningful way for the rest of the Let's Play. I just wanted to be sure to show this off. I will say, generally speaking, this event was made way more convenient in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Because in Platinum version, not only did you need to catch Rotom, but you had to get a special mystery gift just to get a certain key for a very specific room in a very specific building just to access these forms. I'm glad that in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they just made it so that as long as you have a Rotom, you can access this room, which is really all that matters. So I think just to kind of show this off, I'll interact with the washing machine here. It has an odd-shaped motor in it. Oh, Rotom appears as if it wants to go into the motor. Allow it to enter the motor? Yes. Plasma enter the motor. And Plasma is trying to learn Hydro Pump. Plasma cannot learn more than 4 moves. So I will teach it, I won't teach it Hydro Pump. I'll get rid of Double Team for Hydro Pump. That's all right. 1, 2, and poof. Plasma forgot how to use Double Team, and Plasma learned Hydro Pump. And now it is in his Watch Rotom form, which is really cool. I love the outline of the different forms. It's really great. Now, while you can freely leave this room, you can only have 1 electric appliance with you at a time, and you have to come back here if you want to swap them out. So it's not the most convenient thing in the world, so be sure that you are ready to commit to it for at least a little bit, unless you want to keep coming back here over and over. But let's take a look at it in the summary here. Yeah. Very, very nice. Even has the exact description of where it was caught. It was caught in the old chateau. That's very interesting, considering that the old chateau is not an area that we can access in the game. But yeah, like I said, it is still an electric ghost type. It's in later games it would be an electric water type, but it is what it is. It's still pretty nice. I wish it smiled though. At least it kind of looks like it's smiling in the overworld. Plasma is happily zapping and jumping in circles. Well, I'm glad for you, Rotom. So yeah, that is Rotom as a whole. So if you want to do anything with Rotom, this is the place to do it. But like I said, I'm not going to be doing anything else with Rotom. So thanks for joining us on this Let's Play Plasma. Now I'm going to put this washing machine into my computer. You know, how normal people do. All right, I've gotten my party resituated. So now with all business in Saffron City taken care of, it is time to finally leave east. Now, there are other options that we could go with. We could either go north or we could go west, but given what we need to be doing ultimately, I think going east is going to be the way to go about proceeding forward. So, what do you have to say? Have you been to Lavendar Town? There's a tall radio tower there. Interesting. Lavendar Town wasn't really known for that before. Welcome to Route 8. And as you can see, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We still have plenty of bikers here. I do want to address this, however. The notice is torn. It's impossible to read. If we try to enter here, it won't open. It's locked. So, yeah, interesting thing is that even though the power plant doesn't seem to be blocking off the underground here, this underground entrance is not available to us, and I'm not sure if it ever will be, to be honest with you. So, we're just going to have to leave that be for now. But as always, with every new route, there are trainers to fight. And with trainers to fight, there's also new Pokemon that we can talk about. At least, not with respect to this route, but at least with respect to what we can find in general. So, I'm going to be doing what I usually do. I'm going to be speeding things up, fighting some trainers, and in the process, we'll be talking about some new Pokemon that we can get for ourselves. So, Edgar Griffin, do your thing and cue the music. We're the Kanto Pokemon Federation Trainer Group. We'll drive you under our wheels. Why are you running over children? Anyway, while we're fighting these trainers on Route 8, let's talk about a couple more Swarm Pokemon that we can find. If we were to go back to Route 45, when Professor Oak instructs us to, we can now find Swablu roaming about 33% of the time. Swablu as a Pokemon is essentially an adorable dollar store Dratini. It starts off as a normal flying type with below average stats across the board and lackluster moves to work with. Most of the moves it gets are either mediocre offensive moves or middling support moves such as Sing, Safeguard, Mist, and Refresh. Though to be fair to it, as a songbird, it is one of very few Pokemon that can learn Perish Song. However, once it evolves into Altaria at level 35, it does improve considerably. it gets much better offensive and especially defensive stats to give it more longevity in battle. It becomes a dragon flying type to give it many more resistances, which is actually the only case of a normal type evolving into a dragon type to this day. It learns multiple great dragon type moves such as Dragon Breath, Dragon Dance, and Dragon Pulse, and it's one of only 6 Pokemon in the entire game that can learn the move Sky Attack via level up, a 140 power second turn attack with a high critical hit rate and a 30% chance to make the opponent flinch. By the way, half of those 6 are legendary Pokemon. That said, while Altaria's stats are better than Swablu, Altaria's offensive prowess is still only average, dragon type or otherwise. And although there are relatively few other dragon Pokemon you can get, the few you can get usually outclass Altaria offensively. Still, if you want a taste of dragon power and are not willing to put in as much time needed to get the better ones, maybe Swablu is best for you. It is, objectively, the easiest dragon Pokemon to race. Next up, if we head back to Violet City and go fishing on just the right day, we can find Whiscash. Now, before we get into it, I should preface that only Whiscash can be found this way. If you want to get its pre-evolved form, Barboach, you'll need to breed a Whiscash first. I believe aside from baby Pokemon, this is our first case of only being able to find the evolved form of a Pokemon in the wild. Anyway, going into Whiscash with a Pokemon, it has one of the absolute best type combinations in the game, that being Water Ground, much like Wooper. This gives it a nice mix of resistances and immunities to types both common and uncommon, and only has one weakness, Grass. When you look at its stats and moveset, the best way to describe Whiscash is that it's essentially a slightly worse version of Golduck in terms of offense and defense. However, it does have very impressive HP at base 110, making Whiscash a great HP tank. It even comes with Rest and Snore to help actualize this strategy. Now, the reason I compare Whiscash to Golduck specifically is because, like Golduck, Whiscash can learn multiple Psychic-type moves in addition to Water and Ground-type attacks, including Zen Headbutt and Future Sight. However, unlike Golduck, Whiscash cannot learn Calm Mind or Psychic. Not that I outright recommend going out of your way to teach it Psychic if it could. Whiscash definitely has its advantages, as its level up moves alone give it plenty to work with. However, aside from it being a Water Ground type, Whiscash struggles to stand out among its other Water type peers, despite being the only Pokemon in the entire franchise to outright prevent getting caught by a Master Ball. Now, with all that said, am I the only one who erroneously thought that this Pokemon was a Gen 2 Pokemon when it was introduced in Gen 3? I know that there are Gen 2 Pokemon that were mistaken the other way around, but I thought for a good while that Whiscash just fit too well with the vibes of the Johto region to not be from there. Okay, that takes care of all the battles that I need to deal with on Route 8. Now, I do want to address a couple more things. Right here, there's another Apricorn tree, because yes, we still have access to Apricorns even in the Kanto region, although that is totally not a yellow Apricorn, that's totally orange. Anyway, while I was doing that montage, I actually got a couple things. First of all, I want to point out this gentleman here. Like, yes, I had the amulet coin on me, so like the amount of money that I got from him doubled, but like, if I didn't have the amulet coin on me, he still would have given me 9,000 money. In exchange, but instead, I got 18,000 money from this guy. That's more than I got from many members of the Elite Four with the amulet coin. I mean, this guy was loaded. So definitely use the amulet coin when you're fighting this guy. But more importantly, I got a new TM, and I'd like to show that off real quick. We received TM 41, Torment. The user torments and enrages the foe, making it incapable of using the same move twice in a row. This does exactly what it describes. If you don't want your opponent using the same move over and over again, this is the move that you would use to shut that kind of a strategy down. It's a little bit situational, but in the right situation, it can be extremely helpful. Also, Eddie Griffin, put in the clip. You know the one.
Torment!
But yeah, that pretty much takes care of everything that we need to do on Route 8. The trainers here were pretty fun to fight, and there really aren't any new Pokemon that we can catch here, though if we wanted to go for a Growlithe, I'm pretty sure we can catch it in this specific route here, but otherwise there really isn't anything new to this route with respect to the first time that we came here. But still, it is nice to see all the trainers here, and it is especially nice to see the bikers reprise their role here once again. But with that said, welcome to Lavendar Town. And we're going to be ending this episode right here. We have spent the beginning of this episode learning about some aspects of the Union Room. We've gotten ourselves a few new Pokemon that we'll be seeing later on in the future. We made use of one of them today in the form of Rotom to learn about its new forms and also get access to a specific room in the Silphco building. We fought several trainers along Route 8. We've learned about a couple of new Pokemon that we have the ability to catch. And now we've made it to Lavendar Town. So next time on Pokemon HeartGold, we're going to explore what all there is to do in Lavendar Town, and then we'll probably do a little bit more. See you guys then.